Hi, everyone. Welcome to our September webinar. We're super excited that you're here. We have a new piece of research coming out next week, and today our speakers are going to give a little bit of a preview and commentary on some of our findings. So the State of Translation report offers an in-depth look at how hundreds of companies are navigating the translation landscape, allocating their budget, and adopting the latest technology, including AI. This report was built from analyzing the approach of our own customers using Smartling over the last 3+ years and seeing how trends have shifted and changed during that time. So before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items. Please put any questions that you have in the questions tab and we'll try to get to them, time permitting, at the end of the webinar. We'll also be recording the entire session, so if you need for any reason to catch up later, we'll be sending that after the event. So let's get into it. I am joined by two excellent speakers today, Aisling Nolan, Smartling's VP of Customer Success, and Andrew Batwash, Smartling's Director of Language Services. Andrew is filling in for Gavin, who wasn't able to join today, but he is working with him all the time, so I'm really excited for his insights. Welcome, Aisling and Andrew. Thanks for being here.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Cassie.
Let's get into it. So we'll start diving straight into the data. One of the first questions we wanted to answer was, how much are companies translating this year? We know that from a macroeconomic perspective, things have been in a bit of a downturn, but what we actually found in the data is that companies are projected to translate much more this year than in past years. And in fact, the projection that we have for this year is that companies on the median will translate 30% more than they did in 2023. So Andrew, why are some of the reasons that this might be the case given the macroeconomic conditions that we're in?
Yeah, that's. I think there's probably like three kind of big, things we can point to. AI is driving down cost, right? Like that's not surprising, but enterprises are really motivated to leverage an AI solution today. One of the most actionable ways to do that right now is through localization. So there's this combination of a huge opportunity in localization generally, right, to reduce cost, along with the technology that's pretty deployable at scale, in contrast to some other current applications for AI. And so we're seeing that rapid adoption, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, but that is one factor. And then I think you alluded to the macroeconomic environment, and we'll certainly touch on that as we go forward. But customer expectations are just another factor, right? Everybody is really looking to do more with less, and the industry is going through a transformation to some extent as a result. New technology, more agile approaches, right? But for a variety of reasons, customers are just looking to do more with less, right? And that drive is not resulting in less translation. It's actually resulting in, this is not something that should be entirely surprising, but it's resulting in more translation. And then I think, the other thing this might be kind of interesting, we're seeing an uptick in, I would guess you say companies or organizations where they have mandated translation requirements. And, if you think about your traditionally regulated industries, we're also seeing more and more government orgs and government adjacent orgs, nonprofits, companies that do business with governments that have mandated translation requirements, and just a ton of volume and things that need to get translated in that space. So we're seeing a lot more of that, and those three things are really contributing to that spike that we're looking at here.
Great, Aisling, you have any comments there? Is that similar to what you're experiencing with our customers?
Yeah, for sure. I agree with Andrew on all of those points. In particular, in the customer success team, we are hearing a lot from customers that they're under pressure to implement AI into their workflows. There's a lot of curiosity and interest in AI, but on the flip side, to contrast that, they're under cost pressure. So AI is actually allowing customers to translate more content without them resulting in needing to increase their spend. Also, I would say the different ways in which our customers can now integrate with our platform via different sources has grown over the last few years. So we'll talk about this a little bit more in this presentation, but I think that makes it more attractive to customers to translate more content. just due to the value that automation brings when it comes to the localization workflow too.
Great. So another element of thinking through how much companies are translating is going to be the number of locales that they're translating into. So we took a look at what are the target locales per company and found on average or on median, it's right around 17 target locales. So that's quite a few, but I'm sure that companies would rather be translating many more as well. So what are some of the ways, Aisling, that companies are deciding which locales to translate into and prioritize?
Sure. So I'd say first and most importantly, customers are looking at where their customers or users are to inform what languages they translate into. So as an example, if it's an e-commerce company, they're looking at where their purchases are coming from and trying to target those specific regions or countries to get to those customers. Or if it's a company just translating their marketing website, they're looking at web traffic by country and where they're seeing higher conversions to inform some of that. Company strategy is also important. So, some companies that are perhaps embarking on translation for the first time would look at prospective markets for expansion. One thing that we see customers sometimes do is look at what their competitors are doing, where they're doing well in a certain market, and try to go alongside that. So, sometimes companies just have a specific plan to expand into different markets or investing in staffing, etc., and that in turn drives their language translation decisions. When it comes to the specific locales that they decide to translate into, it depends really on, from what we see, company strategy and also overall the budget and investment that they want to make. So as an example, let's take South or Central America. That's a massive region, and there's a lot of different locale variants spoken there when it comes to Spanish and Portuguese. So if a customer is looking to go into that region and they have a lower budget, they may decide to pick one more generic Spanish locale, for example, Spanish for Latin America, to target that kind of wide region. However, if they want to be more targeted in a specific country or to certain buyers, they may decide to target specific or a few specific Spanish locale variations. Of course, if a company is going into that region, also Portuguese for Brazil is critical. So there's various considerations that they need to make there. On the other side of the world, a lot of companies are doing expansion into the APAC region. So when it comes to thinking about what languages they need to translate into there, another example, if you're going into China, you need to understand what part of China you're going after. So in mainland China, you would need to translate into simplified Chinese. However, if you're going into Hong Kong or Taiwan, traditional Chinese is more appropriate. These are just, some simple examples. There's a lot of different considerations that companies would need to make, but they all essentially factor into how they're making decisions around what locales they translate into.
Great. And double clicking a bit on this area more, Andrew, we see that the top 20 or the top 10 target locales for this year listed on the right and sort of their position as it's changed over time. Most of these, even in the top 50, have remained essentially the same for the last several years. But are there any micro movements that the Smartling Language Services team is seeing in the types of locales that are being translated recently?
Yeah, it's an interesting list, Cassie. I think you're right. The group of languages itself overall is probably mostly consistent year to year, right? Like German is always going to be a top language. French is always going to be a top language, big markets. But the shifts, the subtle shifts you see are, they probably do reflect changes that we all kind of like see and experience in kind of like the overall economic environment. Market demand is a big factor in that changes. And, we're seeing a plateauing in Chinese, and that's not surprising, right? Growth in China has slowed and leveled off over the past several years. And, Aisling alluded to this, with, South America, but, with PTBR, a lot of growth in that economy, and a lot of companies are looking to enter the Brazilian market. And then, of course, Russian has been deprioritized as a market for many companies for obvious reasons. And, so I think like some of these subtle shifts do kind of, trail, the macroeconomic trends as companies just calibrate where they want to spend their money. The other interesting thing to note, I would say, is that there is a modest slowdown in Spanish US, but There's also just a resilience of English as a target language. We still see plenty of customers come to us that are translating from non-English source into English, and they're targeting English speakers in the U.S. and native English speakers in the U.S. and U.K. And it just shows the strength of those markets, the durability of English-speaking markets.
Great. All right. So moving into some of the trends that we saw in looking at the data from our customers and how they are approaching translation. So this will come as no surprise to anyone joining us today, but we have definitely seen and are witnessing a major shift in the translation mix on average. So looking at these two charts, we compared 2021 to 2024. What are your thoughts on the shifts that we're seeing, Aisling, and what have we seen maybe in working with customers over the last few years as well?
Sure. Yeah. So, I would say I've been with Smartling a little over 10 years. So when I started here at Smartling, machine translation was just not something that we talked about. I would say it was somewhat taboo. It wasn't something customers asked for. It wasn't something that we proactively suggested to customers as a serious way to translate their content. Post-COVID, I would say around 2021, this started to change a little bit. Machine translation began to be used more in the platform, mostly due to the volumes of content that many companies needed to translate just to stay connected to their customers, and yet they were under financial strain. A lot of companies were under strain during that period, so it was just more cost effective for them to use MT. That said, around 2021, MT still represented a relatively small percentage of the translation mix, as you're seeing here across our customer base. Back then, the quality of MT was still not up to expectations in many cases, and so most companies still relied on the more expensive and time-consuming full human translation workflows, as we were able to see in the chart on the left. Or they used MT and suffered lower quality with pure MT or MT with a basic post-editing workflow. Now, I would say with the rise of AI, the mix has changed dramatically, and it's changed very quickly. Most companies now take an NMT or AI first approach and are more comfortable with translating content purely with those methods because it can deliver better quality at the outset, even with no humans in the loop. So now what we're seeing is that customers are moving away from these legacy MT or MT post-editing workflows to what we call human-powered human translation or human in the loop, allowing them to get really the quality that they previously received with a full translation and editing workflow for less of the cost. On top of that, using a pure MT workflow can now deliver great results for lower value content types that customers are able to access now with the improvements around MT, especially when they layer on top of that something like a trained MT engine and a machine translation optimized glossary. I think this is why we're really seeing such a dramatic shift of about 25 percentage points from 2021 to now for MT.
Andrew, any comments from your side? I know obviously the SLS team is working in a number of different configurations between pure human translation and then these AI-powered workflows. So how does this shift kind of resonate with you?
Yeah, I think, Aisling is absolutely right. And just to take a step back, like we've alluded to this a couple times already, but the overall environment has just changed underneath us from 2021 to 2024, right? Like, in 2021, we had this really hot economy that's been running hot for a long time. And, even during the pandemic, there might've been some friction for some customers, but it was pretty, growth focused, right? And, now we're in this business slowdown where companies are really focused on costs. They're prioritizing efficiency, and localization in particular, and maybe especially, right, has not been immune to this focus on efficiency. And we've seen companies that we work with make big changes to their teams, to their processes, and most importantly, the thing that we're seeing is that procurement on the customer side is playing a much larger role in the evaluation of translation and localization solutions than they've had in the past, with a real focus on what is the economic value that we're getting. And the result is that these localization programs inside these companies, they're increasingly adopting technology. And this chart's a great representation of it, right? And they're tailoring their translation solutions, right, to optimize costs and layer in different quality levels for different types of content. So you see this kind of shift happening, and it's really kind of getting driven by like a different buying impetus on the customer side.
Great. So moving on to the second trend, I think, again, this probably won't be surprising, but I think even given all of the technological changes, and of course, we're going to get to AI later, there's still a continued push for efficiency and getting cleaner in the areas of automation and linguistic assets as well. So when we take a look at this, we found that over 60% of our customers are automating 90% or more of content ingestion. And the average level is right around 93%. So, I think that this is very high for the industry. But Ashley, can you share a bit about the value of automation and how we talk to customers about the ideal approach between automating this versus manual efforts?
Yeah. So automation, bottom line, automation with Smartling allows our customers to be more hands-off and allows them to focus on the higher value tasks that are associated with localization management. I would say when it comes to the value of automation, we need to think about what a localization manager or whoever it may be who's managing these workflows may be, what their life may be like without it. So, just imagine you're needing to translate a website, very common type of content that our customers translate. Without any integrations or automation, that would essentially consist of them needing to copy and paste many, many pages of source content, probably into a Word document or Excel file, send that to a vendor, wait to get it back. Once they get it back, figuring out what translation goes where to paste back into your CRM. This leads to a lot of time wasted, a lot of back and forth communication, human error, and potential recoding, rework needed to be done by your developers. Introducing an integration into this type of scenario really eliminates all of that manual effort, additional dev time, and the potential for human error. In most cases, with an integration in place for digital content like a website, all a customer needs to do is click a button to send content for translation for a web page to get it translated and also to get it back. So they don't have to worry about copy pasting or breaking code. So through that process, you can also communicate the job delivery requirements and no emailing is necessary. So, going back to the value of automation, typically when we think about the value of automation, it's in terms of time and cost avoidance. So as an example, if a customer through automation sends about 6,000 files for translation, which is a real example, by the way, of one of our customers, we estimate annual savings of around $40,000. That's based off the time saved, taking into consideration a human resources salary being around $40 an hour. Obviously, that can vary dramatically. That said, these are real time savings and cost avoidance. But most importantly, it results in a pain-free automated process, allowing those people, those resources that you're paying to focus on more important tasks related to managing translations, which really come down to making sure you're getting the best quality and speed, etc. Realistically, it really would be hard for a company to scale with localization without having an automation in place, and that really is the value that automation brings to our customers.
Great. Thanks, Aisling. And moving on, also double clicking here a bit, just on, what does that automation mean? We have, a number of integrations that we support in our partner ecosystem, but the vast majority of customers are using one of our top 10. So looking at this list, what can we determine about the types of content that customers are translating this past year?
Sure. Excuse me. So customers are continuing to focus on translating their product and marketing content. That's, I would say something that's relatively consistent from what we see, whether it's a web app or mobile app on the product side, or a marketing site and any supporting documentation on the marketing side. So these correspond to why we're seeing such popularity with our GitHub integration, which many developers use for application content. And then on the marketing side, we see Contentful, AEM, and Sitecore as some of the most popular CMS integrations there too. As you can also see, really popular now are our Zendesk and Salesforce knowledge connectors. So this corresponds to customers really being able to access more content to translate through the rise of more cost-effective methods around MT and AI. I would say a few years ago, while customers did certainly translate their help center content and technical documentation, it really wasn't done as much as we're seeing today. I would say it's probably one of the fastest growing content types that we're now seeing customers start to translate, obviously alongside the product and marketing content too.
Yeah, and I think this correlates as well, just from my perspective, to the rise in machine translation to get those quick responses to things like service desk tickets or help center articles that are being updated pretty frequently as well. So definitely see a correlation there. I'll give you a little break, Ashley, and turn to Andrew here on the topic of translation memory. So this is another major driver of efficiency and cost savings. An industry benchmark that we've kind of heard thrown around for a number of years has been around 40% as a target for TM leverage. But we're actually seeing that customers at Smartling are closer to 60% of content reuse. In fact, it looks like the average is around 63. So why do you think we're seeing that higher rate of reuse, and what does that mean for a customer's cost per word?
Yeah, thanks, Cassie. I really like this slide. Smartling at its core is a technology company, right? And we lean into technology solutions in everything we do. So we have AI, we have R&D, we have product and engineering teams who are working constantly to improve our platform, improve our offerings, improve our solutions. Ashley was talking a little bit about our connectors and how those have continued to evolve and develop and expand. But Smartling is also a translation service provider, right? And those services are likewise technology driven and tightly integrated with the platform and the tooling available to our customers. So that integration really allows us to provide exceptional results similar to the 63% average reuse rate, right? Another way to think about this number is through our net price to customers, right? Our customers are seeing, when they're using our language services and the technology platform, they're seeing about a 30% reduction from list rates due to the amount of leverage they're getting. And this is just, to me, a really great slide. It speaks to one of our core value propositions that the customers get from Smartling. And it's a real tangible outcome for customers that they can point to.
Great. So now that we've talked about, everything besides this, the last trend, again, will come as no surprise around the growth of AI. So we did a couple of things here. One was that we surveyed our customers to get their perspective on the new technology. And the other is that we kind of took a little deeper look at the data. So that data component will be available in the report. We have some that we'll share today, but we're really going to focus on covering some of those survey results. So the first questions around the survey results were about kind of the understanding and comfortability with LLM. So we asked two questions, one around how familiar customers were with LLMs and their capabilities for translation, and then the other around feeling whether they'd gotten the right amount of support and training. So what we're seeing here is, even though most customers are at least somewhat familiar with LLMs, around half are saying they don't feel like they have gotten the training and support that they need. So, Andrew, what do you think are the thoughts on, what Smartling's role or a vendor's role is in playing to fill those educational gaps with customers?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of companies they're obviously looking for AI applications right today to help them save money, go faster, do things better, right? But we're still kind of early on in this journey, in this AI journey, especially in kind of like the enterprise business space. People are learning and developing expertise, right? But they may not have it today, right? And that doesn't stop their company leadership from driving the application in many cases, or some teams may be seeing an opportunity for improvement, but just don't know how to take that next step. So you can see in these numbers that people are interested, but they're not experts, right? And what Smartling provides is that expertise, right? A turnkey AI solution that can start delivering tangible results for an enterprise today, right? And something that can scale with an enterprise as well. So we've taken it on ourselves to find the right applications for AI in the localization space and build it into our offerings, into our TMS, into our translation workflows, so that it actually adds value and can drive outcomes for customers. And one like small tiny example of this is adaptive TM repair, right? We talked about reuse a little while ago, but where we can take an AI application and integrate it with a customer's translation memory to effectively improve that TM dynamically in real time, right? And so that's something where we've developed a solution for a customer that adds value and kind of takes the mystery away from how do I get something out of AI, right?
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think it's sort of that buy versus build conversation as well around, do I just buy from someone who has evaluated this, or do I try to build it on my own?
Exactly.
So Aisling, any comments from you on how our customer success team is trying to approach this change in technology?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I would just put it pretty simply that this is understandable. AI is growing so quickly. It's hard for anybody to keep up. But as Andrew said, we do invest a lot in AI R&D and engineering, and we have a ton of specialists on this, and we do a lot of internal training too. So really what it comes down to, I would say, is for anything, whether it's AI that we're talking about here, or integrations, or how to get the best leverage from your TM. Smartling really should be, and we want to be, your trusted advisor. And our role as your vendor is to educate and be that advisor, so that we'll do all of the dirty work for you, so to speak, and make sure that we're bringing good solutions and good education to our customers to kind of fill that gap.
Great. So hopefully when we do this survey next year, we'll have 100% who feel like they're fully informed about AI. The other thing that we asked was whether customers had adopted or experimented with AI over the past year, and whether they plan to next year. So nearly 50% indicated that they had already experimented with AI in some way. And in the next 12 months, around 75% said they plan to. So another 25% are looking to adopt this next year. Andrew, what are some of the trends we've seen in terms of how and where AI is being used?
Yeah, like our customers are, even when we're talking to, prospects who are interested in working with us, they're all telling us the same thing pretty much, right? We need to do more or less. We need an AI solution. They see that as kind of the vehicle for that. So, the adoption we're seeing, I think like the trends that we expect to continue seeing, is really kind of response to those business needs that our customers are articulating, right? But what's really remarkable about this AI growth to me, and kind of the trend upward that we're seeing, is it hasn't really come with any compromise in quality. And I think this is like super important to highlight, because we're talking about being more efficient. We're talking about doing more or less. We're talking about tailoring solutions, right? Tiering content quality levels for different content. But that is not the same as walking back quality expectations or compromising on quality, right? Customers still need to make sure they're getting what they expect from a quality expectation perspective. So, from what we see with our internal data, we're seeing consistently high quality scores for our AI-powered human translation solution, right? Across languages, different content types, at scale with large enterprises that are translating high volumes. And so customers are going to get real value here, and maintain their quality levels, get lower prices, go a little bit faster. And I think that's kind of what we're going to see trend-wise, and that's really what's going to allow this AI adoption to take off, despite maybe some of the uncertainty or unfamiliarity that we're seeing from our customers. It's really the results that are going to charge this and allow us to kind of present real value for our customers.
Yeah, and one of those trends that we've seen, and I think a big reason why there has been some experimentation with AI, is sort of the way that our SLS team has shifted. And we talked a little bit earlier about AI powered versus translation and editing. So can you talk a little bit about kind of how the AIHT solution in particular has kind of grown in terms of how much we're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And this slide's like an interesting contrast, right, to the last slide, where maybe buyers or customers are a little uncertain about AI utilization or AI adoption. And then here, we're seeing kind of a pretty rapid increase over the past, year or so in adoption of AI. And, what we've been able to do is really take, AI applications using large language models and augment the translation workflow that we have. And so, AI does some really great things that machine translation can't do, and we're using that to improve this automated translation process that I think traditionally, Aisling mentioned this early on. Traditionally, MT was kind of a taboo, solution, especially going back years in this industry. And so what we've really done is kind of build this high quality workflow. We've taken our expert translators, who've been working with us for a really long time, and put them in a place where they add value in really meaningful ways in this workflow. And it's been something where customers have been able to get really good quality, far lower price at really twice the speed. So really great value, really great adoption. We expect this to continue to increase as we go.
Great. And just for clarity, specifically, this is showing the percentage of volume for our SLS team. So not indicative of kind of third parties that are using our platform, but we're seeing, right around 40% of all translations that are going through our SLS team are currently AIHT, which is a huge jump from, the last 6 quarters. So our final area that we kind of wanted to talk about was we asked customers to share their perspectives on the benefits and drawbacks of LLMs. We're seeing benefits like cost savings, consistency, faster delivery, but we're also seeing some drawbacks around, translation accuracy and hallucination. So Aisling, how is Smartling thinking about balancing the drawbacks of AI with also the opportunity it presents for our customers?
Sure. Yeah. So this is really important. Smartling is really focused on using technology to make LLMs more reliable. So as an example, our R&D and engineering teams spend a lot of time working on fixing latency issues. Speed is so important to our customers. When a customer is using AI as part of their workflow, they expect to get the translations back, relatively instantaneously. So we need to make sure that we're focused on that. We also do a ton of research on where LLMs perform best and make sure that we use LLMs that work best in certain scenarios versus taking a kind of one-size-fits-all approach. Lastly, we know that LLMs can still introduce some errors. So we are focused on keeping humans in the loop where they need to be. The role of the translator, in our view, is really critical to the success of AI-powered workflows. Their role is evolving, but they need to be part of the mix to make sure that we can deliver high-quality translations to our customers.
Great. So before we go to audience questions, we have a couple that I see. Just a last question here, Aisling. So the report will be coming out very soon, likely next week, and we'll share the copy with that to everyone who joined the webinar. But let's talk briefly about kind of how companies should think about using the information in this report as benchmarks to overall improve their translation program or assess it.
Sure. Tons of data, tons of useful information in here. So, I would say as a key takeaway or a few key takeaways, it's really clear that companies are translating more content than ever, mostly due to the rise of AI, which is allowing companies, we've said this a few times, to do more with less. That said, it's important to continue to be strategic about your international expansion to inform target languages being translated into. Companies really need to be smart about where and how they're focusing their translation efforts based on concrete company data around where your customers are or what your business goals are. The top languages mix has changed a little bit across our customer base year over year, but I would say language mix is a very important and personal decision for a company to make depending on your overall expansion strategy and business objectives. Doing more with less, it really shouldn't mean that strategy and planning goes out the window, so you need to make sure that the ROI is there. This report in particular is a great opportunity for our audience to grade yourselves against the benchmarks and weigh that against your overall company and personal KPIs, as well as any pain points to see where you could optimize. It may be that a lack of automation is your key challenge. So if you're a customer of ours, I would encourage you to take a look at the levels of automation, think about what your pain points are, and reach out and speak to your Smartling CSM about ways in which you think you could introduce automation into your workflows. It really may be easier than you think. On the flip side, if you're suffering from long turnaround times and expensive translation bills, and you don't really know where to start or what to do with AI, there is likely a better way to accomplish the same or better quality outcomes for less cost and faster turnaround time by embracing MT or AI as part of your workflow. So again, if you're a Smartling customer, we're here to help. We want to be your trusted advisor. So reach out to your CSM or LSPM, and we can do a cost savings analysis for you to help you see how much you could save, or how you can optimize your workflow if you were translating similar to some of the benchmarks provided here. So that's what I would say. Really think about, use this as a way to think about and analyze where how you're doing against what we're seeing in the market.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm going to stop sharing and ask a couple questions. We did have one question on the survey data, so I'll go ahead and answer that one. So really with this report, this first version of our state of translation report, we wanted to use Smartling customers as a proxy for the market overall. So we have a broad representation of industries, company sizes, and people who have been doing translation for a long time or maybe just started. So both the survey and data are all from Smartling customers. We haven't gone more broadly than that. That being said, I think it's a great idea for our next version to have a survey go more broadly to the market overall. So just to give clarity on where that data is coming from. We did have one question here around how can you integrate AI into translation workflows without automating content ingestion? So maybe we can just talk through, automating content ingestion obviously is a huge thing, and using AI is a huge thing. But let's say you're not automating content ingestion. Does that mean you can't use AI?
No, in fact, the application is agnostic to how the content comes in. So.
Yeah, agreed. I would actually categorize those into two different buckets. Using AI. Using AI really impacts the content when it's already in the platform. When it comes to how you get that content into the platform, I would separate that a little bit from just being able to use AI to get better quality outcomes and save some money.
Great. And another question kind of on data, and I think this is a great suggestion. There was a question around, do you have any data around how companies are structuring localizing roles and responsibilities internally? Is this living with product, marketing, tech, or another function? I would love to get that data and share that with you guys, but I'll ask Ashley, are you seeing any trends in this? Is it sort of split? Maybe Andrew as well. Any thoughts on kind of where localization is living within teams?
Yeah, it's split. I would say we see a relatively healthy mix of between product and marketing. Typically, we certainly do see it sometimes under tech, but typically we see that less. I would say, going back to one of the comments that Andrew made, one thing we're noticing over the past year or two is that procurement is playing a bigger part in the overall translation and localization strategy. But in terms of the day-to-day management of localization, it still does typically fit either in product or marketing, perhaps a little bit more on the marketing side, but I would say it's the difference there from what I personally see and what we see on the customer success team, it's not that vast. I don't know, Andrew, if you have any other different thoughts there.
No, I agree with that. I think there's probably not much change in how operations have been organized. I think the major change is kind of on the buying decision side, right? And that's been something that's become quite pronounced over the last couple of years.
Amazing. Well, thank you both, Andrew and Ashley, and thank you guys for the great questions in the audience. As I mentioned, that report will be going live next week, and we'll be sure to share it with everyone. You'll also see a ticker at the bottom of the screen to register for our next webinar, which will be all about proving localization ROI, which I know is a huge topic. We have a guest speaker from globalization firm Global 10X who will be joining us. And I think it'll be a really great session. So join us there in October. And thank you all so much for joining us today.
Have a great day. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.